everybody. Todd Tanner here for Black Wrestling News. Today in profile, I'll be talking about the wrestling legend, one of the black pioneer wrestlers of professional wrestling, Rufus R. Freight Train Jones. But before I do, let me say that this channel right here, you might find anything good and wonderful happening here on Black Wrestling News, because I'm not just going to be talking about black professional wrestlers, but I'm going to be talking about a lot of things that encompasses the entire African American community. So I'll be talking about politics, I'll be talking about entertainment, music, anything that's noteworthy and newsworthy. I'm going to discuss it on Black Wrestling News. But primarily, this is a sports program, but we will preempt it at times to talk about some of the things that are happening pertaining to us in terms of economics, and because we need to understand about wealth. We must understand about creative wealth, creative sustaining wealth, and also inspiration and motivation is of the utmost to inspire a brand new generation of men and women to start living and achieving their goals. Forget about the so-called American dream. Have your own dream. Have your own vision. Now let's talk about Rufus R. Jones, whose real name was Carrie L. Lloyd. He was born July 4th, 1933, and he passed away on November 13th, 1993, also known by his ring name by Rufus R. Freight Train Jones. According to Wikipedia, he was an American professional wrestler. I like to add he was a black pioneer professional wrestler. He competed in the Central States, St. Louis, and Mid-Atlantic regional promotions of the National Wrestling Alliance, as well as American Wrestling Association and All Japan Pro Wrestling during the 1970s and 1980s. And it's interesting, according to the statistics here. Let me read them. As I told you, his real name is Carrie L. Lloyd. He was born July 4th, 1933, CeeLo, South Carolina, and died November 13th. He was 60 years old, and he passed away in Kansas City, Missouri. Rufus R. Jones was his ring name. His build height was 6 feet 1 inches. That's 1.85 millimeters. And his build weight was 275 pounds, 124 kilograms. And he was built from St. Louis, Missouri. He debuted in 1986 and retired in 1989. Well, that's a long time to wrestle. That's a long time to wrestle. And from what I discovered and from what I researched, it was good. So Lloyd was born in CeeLo, South Carolina, and as a young boy, moved to a tenant home in Delia. He also worked as a carpenter and attended South Carolina State University, where he played on the football team. He also got involved with boxing and competed as a Golden Glove boxer, amassing a 32-3 record. So that's a good start for somebody in terms of their background, who was going to become a professional wrestler. So let's talk about Brother Jones's quote-unquote wrestling career. Lloyd trained to become a wrestler at the Tony Santos Boston Wrestling School. At the beginning of his career, he used the ring name Buster Lloyd, claiming to have learned how to fight on the corner of Lenox Avenue and 125th Street in Harlem. So everybody's got to have a gimmick. Everybody has to come up with something. Got to have a background. In this gimmick, he wrestled in Texas and criticized the local wrestlers as being inferior fighters to someone who grew up on the streets. He feuded with Tiger Conway Sr., who emerged as the victor in the feud. He made his professional wrestling debut in 1968, working in Eastern Canada for Grand Prix Wrestling, or Grand Prix Wrestling in the Maritimes, and International Wrestling in Montreal. In 1969, he wrestled in Japan for the Japan Pro Wrestling Alliance. Lloyd later adopted the ring name of Rufus R. Jones and was nicknamed Freight Train, which was also the name of his finisher, consisting of two shoulder blocks followed by a headbutt. In interviews, he would tell opponents that his middle initial R stood for guts. He formed a tag team with Burrhead Jones, who was billed as his coach. Jones then moved to Missouri to work for Sam Mutnick in the St. Louis Wrestling Club. He also competed for Heart of America Sports / Central States Wrestling. On September 10, 1970, he won his first championship by teaming with Danny Little Bear to win the Central State version of the NWA North American Tag Team Championship. He won the belt 3 more times with different partners, including Steve Bolus, the Stomper, and Bob Geigel, who went on later to become one of the announcers in the NWA. On February 5, 1976, Jones wrestled NWA World Heavyweight Champion Terry Funk to a 1-hour draw in Winston-Salem until beating him via disqualification on July 6. He did not win the world title, but instead won the NWA Mid-Atlantic Television Championship on November 30 from Greg Valentine. He lost the title to Valentine on January 19, 1977, but regained it from him on February 11th until dropping the title on April 4 to Ric Flair, the Nature Boy. Whoa! Ric Flair. Between 1972 and 1982, he worked for All Japan Pro Wrestling. He also had a short stint in Florida for Southeastern Championship Wrestling, winning the NWA Alabama Heavyweight Championship. Jones wrestled his final match in Puerto Rico for the World Wrestling Council, or Capital Sports promotion, on September 10th, 1988, at a hot night in Bowman, where he and Jimmy Valiant defeated the Wild Samoans, Alpha and Sika, by disqualification. Carrie Lloyd was married to Brookese Jones Lloyd for 30 years. They have 3 daughters. I'm not going to name them, but they had 3 daughters, and he had a son who worked for the World Wrestling Federation for many years as the Doctor of Style, Slick, whose real name was Kenneth Johnson. After Lloyd's retirement from wrestling, he worked with Bob Geigel in security at a dog racing track in Kansas City, Kansas. He then opened a restaurant in 1991 named Rufus's Ringside Restaurant and Bar in Kansas City, Missouri. On November 13, 1993, Lloyd died of a heart attack while hunting deer in Brunswick, Missouri. He was 60 years old. He had a wide number of lodge members and fans at his funeral, and Masonic rituals were performed at the viewing of his body prior to burial. So, did he win any championships? The answer is yes. He held the Central States Wrestling, the NWA Central States Heavyweight Championship twice, the NWA Central State times with Bob Brown, Dewey Robertson, and Mike George. The NWA Central States Television Championship 1 time, the NWA North American Tag Team Championship 5 times with Danny Little Bear, Steve Bolus, the Stomper, Bob Geigel 2 times. Down in the Georgia Championship Wrestling, he held the NWA Georgia Tag Team Championship 1 time with Norval Austin. In Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, he held the NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Championship 1 time, the Mid-Atlantic Tag Team Championship 1 time with Bugsy McGraw, the NWA Mid-Atlantic Television Championship 2 times, the NWA World Tag Team Championship Mid-Atlantic version with Wahoo McDaniel, who went on to become a great wrestler in his own right. Also, check it out. Let me fix my thing here so we make sure we're all on the same page. There you have it. And according to Pro Wrestling, he was the World Negro Heavyweight Championship 1 time. Pro Wrestling Illustrated, PWI ranked him number 477 of the 500 best singles wrestlers of the PWI years in 2003. According to Pro Wrestling This Week, He was Wrestler of the Week November 1 through 7 in 1987, and the Southern Eastern Championship Wrestling NWA Alabama Heavyweight Champion one time. He was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2018. There you have it, the one and only Rufus R. Freight, Freight Train Jones. I'll see you all a little later. I'll be back with some more information. But for now, I'm Todd Tanner for Black News Wrestling. Or Black Wrestling News. My bad, y'all.